everyone, I'm Graham Ledger, and welcome to the Daily Ledger, our cover story, the desperate, dying last breaths of the Republican establishment. It's personal, and it is personified in Mitt Romney, the man who suffered a humiliating loss to the worst president since World War II, is now telling Republican voters how to win. He is telling us, we the people, that the leading candidate for the Republican nomination for president, who is energizing the people and the debate in 2016, Donald Trump, is a phony and a fraud.
If we Republicans choose Donald Trump as our nominee, the prospects for a safe and prosperous future are greatly diminished. If Donald Trump's plans were ever implemented, the country would sink into prolonged recession. A few examples. His proposed 35% tariff-like penalties would instigate a trade war, and that would raise prices for consumers, kill our export jobs, and lead entrepreneurs and businesses of all stripes to flee America. His tax plan, in combination with his refusal to reform entitlements and to honestly address spending, would balloon the deficit and the national debt. Donald Trump is a phony, a fraud. His promises are as worthless as a degree from Trump University.
Now, the fraud is the establishment Republicans. The fraud is the Republican leadership. The fraud is Mitt Romney and company, who have rigged the system so that outsider candidates like Trump and Ben Carson are virtually shut out by the GOP power brokers.
It has become a little bit discouraging seeing all the relationships that exist there. It is rotten. It is rotten to the core on both sides, Democrats and Republicans. And they have weaved such a complex web, it will be very, very difficult to untangle it.
So, here's what has Romney so worried. It is Trump's to win. The latest delegate count, Donald Trump 319, Ted Cruz 226, Marco Rubio 110. It's not a lock, but Trump is 1/4 of the way there. Panic. The Republican establishment is in a state of panic. Their guy Marco Rubio cannot win. The only shot Rubio has, even if he wins Florida, is a divisive, dysfunctional, brokered convention. Joining me now from San Francisco, California, Vice President of Axiom Strategies, Brandon Moody. Brandon, if the establishment Republicans are so worried about Donald Trump, Mitt Romney included, if they're so worried, then why don't they get their guy, that would be Marco Rubio, out of the race? He has 100 delegates. Donald Trump has 3x what Rubio has. If they're so worried about handing the nomination to Donald Trump, then they should get their guy out of there.
Well, thanks for having me on, Graham. It's a good question you ask. I think what you're trying to ask is if there was a consolidation behind one candidate against Trump, what would that look like? And could that person potentially, fight back against the plurality of votes that Mr. Trump is getting? Now, remember, he's not really taking majorities in any of these states. He's pulling 30, 35, 38%, which is very strong. Don't get me wrong. But consolidating behind one candidate has been a theory that's been posited. I'm not sure it's going to work out, because what it requires is a number of the three final remaining candidates to come to some kind of conclusion.
Right.
The larger question is this spooky, scary establishment you're talking about all working together in pulling in the same direction to fight Mr. Trump? It doesn't seem that they are. It doesn't seem that there's much of a plan in place regarding that. And so this outsider push nationally has really ignited a GOP base, and I think it's ignited even Senator Cruz's campaign to a larger extent early on.
Well, you know, I'm not talking about, there is a conspiracy here. I'm not a conspiracy freak. I don't have tinfoil on my windows. I do not. But there is a conspiracy here among X amount of Republican establishment. They're in a state of panic. Their guy, a year ago at this time, the shoe-in guy was Jeb Bush. He's not even in the picture anymore. So here we have Marco Rubio. He's the only shot left for the, quote, establishment. And I firmly believe that Rubio is an establishment candidate. Out of 15 contests so far, primaries and caucuses, he has won one in a liberal state, as in Minnesota. So if he clears the field, yes, I don't even count Kasich in this race at this point, really. All he's playing is spoiler in a couple of key states, but he's a blip on the radar. It should come down to Ted Cruz and Donald Trump for the good of the party.
And when you look at it in that regard, it's truly a true conservative versus a populist. And in many regards, Mr. Trump has posited a number of Republican views, and then he's also posited a number of liberal ones. And so his claim that he's growing the party is that he's growing the party in these open primaries where there's a bunch of people who aren't Republicans who can come out and vote. Now, that might be an okay argument if you're not a Republican. But if you're a Republican and you're looking to nominate someone who's a true conservative, there's a much different path, I think, that they're trying to figure out how to take. And whether it's the establishment or, you know, Senator Cruz is not the establishment, but he is certainly a true conservative who can unite, I think, an establishment behind him eventually when they come around to realizing that he's the guy that's only beaten him. He's beaten him 4 times now.
Ted Cruz, correct. When we look at Mitt Romney, and me, I don't know how you feel about it, I'm shocked that he would come out and kneecap anybody, Donald Trump or anyone in a campaign like this, especially when you look at it through the prism of 4 years ago when Mitt Romney welcomed Donald Trump's endorsement. In fact, he almost endorsed Donald Trump right back, in a sense, there back in 2012 in Nevada. But, you know, when you look at the big picture, Donald Trump is coming out with more details. Of course, people have been scathing Donald Trump for lack of details on many plans. He comes out regarding his health care plan. He's got a 7-point plan. We'll have more of that a little bit later in the program. But he also sounds conciliatory on election night, congratulating Ted Cruz. You know, this is not a time to come out, in my opinion, and start attacking one another. Let's stick to substance here.
Well, that would be a great argument if it didn't fall flat on its face whenever Donald Trump gets to Twitter or whenever he gets near a camera. I mean, you know, the real problem is every time he's conciliatory or nice, he makes news now, because every time he's mean and nasty, everyone ignores it, because that's what he's been doing for frankly, you know, a year. And the circus that he's created is one that we all can smile at or laugh at, I guess, and a bunch of folks, it seems to me, have decided that that's the type of candidate that they like, someone who's going to throw haymakers even if he misses a decent amount of times. And the fact that he's bringing out some plans is probably because he's been exposed by people who understand policy a significantly greater detail than he does. And so the fact that he's rolling these things out now, and some of these plans have been shot full of holes, but you know, he's rolling these plans out now because he has to.
Right, and that's a good thing, right?
Well, being forced to do so in a presidential campaign, to actually talk about what you're going to do as president, is a good thing. It's ironic that it's happening so late. But look, on the Mitt Romney thing, I get why there's a bunch of folks saying, hey, you know, what is the deal here? This guy endorsed Trump. Trump endorsed him, and now he's coming out and attacking him, and the epitome of the establishment. But if you're looking at someone who is the exact opposite of a personality and a campaign, it's Romney and Trump. I mean, you know, that may turn a lot of people off, but in terms of honesty and integrity and intelligence and do what you say, Mitt Romney and Donald Trump are far, far apart. So I can see why on both sides of it that there's people rolling their eyes, and then there's people clapping their hands for this.
Well, you know, it's a free country. Certainly, you know, if Mitt Romney wants to pay for a microphone, get up there and get on TV, that's his choice. But in my opinion, he had his shot 4 years ago, ran a terrible, deplorable campaign that energized no one. He's a loser, and he should relegate himself to the pages of Wikipedia. Brandon, thank you. Coming up next, Art Laffer on how the candidates should talk taxes. Also ahead, The Obamacare implosion, the fraud, the dwindling providers.
Maybe they're just purely incompetent, but they're looking the other way as the president continues to tout the benefits of his law